I am so excited about today's episode because we are going to talk about the single most important factor when it comes to treating speech sound disorders. That is going to be your treatment target. The treatment target, I would say, accounts for 80% of your outcomes. Even if you're doing the old-fashioned drill and kill single word level work, that is going to be effective if you are using a powerful treatment target. The treatment target is everything. Of course, there's a better way to do things, and I would argue that better way to do things is going to be in a paragraph format that involves multimodal cueing, dynamic tactile temporal cueing, and movement. But that's another session. We're talking about the treatment target in itself today, and I'm going to share with you five very important questions to ask when it comes to your treatment target to make sure that you have the most powerful one out there. Now, when I talk about treatment target, I'm talking about that right now because we are in IEP season. For me, for instance, it's the end of the school year. I am a school speech language pathologist. The month of May is simply IEP time. I think I have 20 IEPs this month, so I have goals on the top of my mind right now, and I can't wait to share with you these five questions. The first question I think is the most important question of them all. Ask, is this a three-element cluster? So I've done the research here. This really matters that you're picking a three-element cluster and not a two-element cluster. When I say not a two-element cluster, you can have three-element clusters and two-element clusters, which is what you see in my paragraph formats. However, you're going to want to have the three-element cluster there at least once. My favorite three-element clusters include the R sound. So that would be SKR, which I think is the most powerful of them all. And we'll talk about why later, a little bit later. STR, SPR are really powerful three-element clusters. Now, you're probably already thinking, what if the child can't produce R? Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you this. You want the R, because if you can do the R, what my research has shown, you're going to get that L for free. So what we want to do is try to get that R with a maximum level of cueing. But even with every tool in your toolbox, if you're not able to get the R, you can always go to an SPL blend, for instance. You can go to an SK yeah blend or an SK wa blend. So there are some other options for you. So just think about that, but you always want to go for the three-element blend. It's kind of like poker. Three of a kind beats two of a kind. It doesn't matter if it's three twos. So even if it is like SKW is the most complex three-element blend that you can get using a maximum of cueing, that is preferable to a two-element blend that is complex, such as SL. Let's go to the next rule, maxim number 2. Can the child produce accurately provided a maximum level of cueing 4 to 5 times? Maybe you're like, they can produce this accurately 1 out of 10 times. Well, that's not going to work because we need an 80% accuracy criterion. Otherwise, it's just luck. I mean, if you have the child producing it incorrectly, and then the child produces it correctly, and then they receive a natural reward, it's just confusing. You risk, if you're doing that, not only frustration if you're below 80%, but also you risk habituation of an error and reinforcement of that error. You really want to make sure that the child's able to do that complex cue correctly 4 out of 5 times. If you give them every single tool in your toolbox and you're going 0 miles an hour very, very slowly, of course, you want to keep those sounds continuously connected because speech is a continuous motor activity. You never want to leave 3-second pauses between those sounds. You want to keep those sounds connected. Well, what you're going to do is you're going to lengthen the sounds. For instance, if we're doing SKR, car. So what you hear is you hear that lengthening but you don't hear them discreetly produced, but continuously produced because you want to be doing what speech is, which is a continuous, complex motor act. It's not a set of discrete movements like that. The next one we're going to want to look at is, are the clusters within that blend maximally distinct? So when you look at maximally distinct, what you're talking about is like Cirque du Soleil in the mouth. You're doing two very different types, in this terms, manner of sounds, and they're coming together, which produces acrobats in the mouth, and that will improve the motor coordination. For instance, if we have an S blend and it's two elements, we will want to do something that's S, which is a fricative. The airflow is, there's friction in it, it's kind of stuffed. We want to connect that with a gliding sound, something like W. So instance, swap, or we want to connect that with a liquid in which the airflow just glides over the tongue of an L or an R, such as slide, or if we're going to go for the three element, we're going to grab that R and we'll do scrape. So what we're doing is, when you look at the S and the K sound, these are called obstruents, like the airflow is obstructed. And then if you connect that to the R, and the R is a liquid in which the airflow flows over the oral cavity, that's where you're going to get the Cirque du Soleil in the mouth. That's when you're going to get the acrobatics that improves the overall motor coordination. The third question we're going to ask is, are there maximally distinct consonants within that cluster? For instance, the reason I don't choose something like SP as a cluster, not only is the cluster very simple, it's an earlier developing cluster, but also because it's SP are both obstruents. The S is a fricative, in which there's the friction in the airflow, let's say it, and the P is a stop. So there's a stop in the airflow. So these are very similar. But if I take that S and I combine it with an L, or I combine it with a W, you're going from an obstructed sound to a sound that is known as a liquid or a glide. It's almost vowel-like, in which the airflow flows over the tongue. You always want to think maximally distinct clusters. We don't want to match up the similar with the similar. Okay, let's look at the next question. Number 4, does this cluster efficiently treat multiple phonological processes? Now, the reason I like SKR so much is because so many of my kids stop the S sound, so they stop those fricatives. So instead of S for sun, they'll say ton. And then instead of K for cat, they'll say tat. And R, instead of ring for the ring I have on my finger, they'll say ring. So I get 3 for the price of 1. I'm addressing 3 different phonological processes through that SKR verb. And the reason I like scrape is because it's so novel. A lot of people, they say, oh, you want to pick a functional verb to work with a child. I disagree with that. You actually do not want to pick a word that the child has said multiple times in the past with. You want a blank slate. You don't want that errored memory that you have to counteract, that you have to go against in order for learning to occur. A good example of this is the REST approach for childhood apraxia of speech out of Australia. Now, this approach is highly researched, and the meta-analysis indicate it has a large effect size. That means this is something that really makes a difference. They use nonsense words for this reason, because they don't want to have to work against prior error learning. They want that blank slate to build accurate production from. That's why I like the word scrape. Is it functional? No, I don't want functional. I don't want a word that the child is saying 1,000 times a day. I want a blank slate. That's why I love the word scrape so much. For other people, it scrapes them the wrong way. They don't like it so much. But hey, if you want to get gains, it's a great way to go. And you don't mind being a little bit different and thinking outside of the box, scrape it to you. All right, so let's go on to the next one. The number 5 question that we're going to ask is, does the phonetic context facilitate accuracy in establishing the sound, or does it challenge the target sound in generalization? Let me give you an example. When it comes to R, I love SKR, skr. And the reason I love that so much is the S, you have the lips retracted. For the Ka, you have that tongue already up to the roof of the mouth, back to the velar region. It makes the R very easy to produce. So let's just say the SKR together, skr, okay? What you're gonna feel is the R, it didn't have to travel far. The lips didn't have to travel far. Your lips were already retracted. Your tongue was already at the roof of your mouth. If you're looking in the mirror and you got skr, you're gonna see very minimal difference between the R and the SK. So this is a facilitative context. This is something that's going to be really helpful in establishing a strong R sound. Of course, later on for generalization, we want to challenge that R sound and make it difficult. For that, I like SPR. So if you look at SPR, it's like, oh, there goes the lips. We're doing the paw. You're even going to feel the tongue drop and move forward when you do the tongue, the paw. Then suddenly you feel the tongue move forward, you feel the lips move forward, everything just kind of projects forward for the P. And then we're going to do the R, and then it pulls back. So it takes a lot to get that R. You're going to want to say sway instead of spray because you have your lips protracted forward, you have your tongue dropped, so it's just going to kind of glide out of there like sway. You can see that this is much more difficult than scrape was. Scrape made the R easy, spray made the R hard. So you're always going to look at that phonetic context and say, okay, where is the child with this R sound? Okay, this child, they have the R sound down. We're at the generalization phase. So we are going to go for an SPR now. And we want the child to be able to, within therapy, independently be saying spray and by themselves getting a really nice R out. So that when they hit the streets, the R is still there because we've challenged it at a higher level within therapy. Those are the 5 questions to ask of your treatment targets. I encourage you with every single treatment target that you ask, these 5 questions, and you go for 5 for 5. And if you're going 5 for 5, I think you're going to have a great year ahead of you. You're going to see huge gains, and I want you to shoot me an email my way. Tell me about what's happening in your neck of the woods. Tell me what's happening on your back porch. Tell me about the great gains that the children are making. I'm sure that's what you're going to see if your treatment targets fleshing out in all 5 of these areas. If you are interested in treatment targets that really, really work, then I've researched. Check out the SIS membership. In the SIS membership, when you join, you get the treatment target library. So when you join, you get the paragraphs and the sentence strips so you can go and put those treatment targets right to use and see what happens. You're going to be blown away. Then if you decide this isn't for me, these activities aren't for me, after the first month, you simply unsubscribe. You say, I've got my treatment targets. Thank you very much. See you later, alligator. However, if it does work for you, stick by me at the drawing board and we'll keep working together and changing lives together. But for the time being, you know what to do. Roll up your sleeves and make the world a better place, one child at a time. You are always going to be first.